World War III has never been closer than it is right now.
Welcome to Loose and Reckless. I am your host, Ray. We're talking about Putin today. Putin right now, should we say. This man here is diabolical genius number one, according to The View. They really think this guy is controlling Trump and all this other good stuff. But I want to discuss his response to Trump saying that he will be dropping a 100% tariff on the BRICS nations. Okay, the BRICS nations is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. It's an agreement that they got where they're trying to create their own currencies and their own economic agendas, and they want to push away from using the US dollar. Now, there's a lot to be said about that. I want to go over this video and also go into the comment section and just discuss the philosophy that these people are having, right? A lot of people are having different feelings on this thing, and I want to get mine out there too, But let's go over Putin's response, and I want you guys to pay attention to the respect that Putin plays his hand toward Trump, right? There's a level of respect with men amongst men understand men, right? You get in a room with a bunch of, weak backs, people that got a bunch of complaining, they crying all the time. These men ain't men. You know it. But you get in a room of some go-getters that's on their business, on their job, doing what they need to be doing. You know it. And I think Putin understands that Trump is about his business type of guy. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. And he doesn't really want to ruffle the feathers. In the media, they're going to try to play this constantly like Trump is making some errors and creating enemies and he's over his head. No, man. You got to really read the room. You got to see what's really going on. And the liberal media is all propaganda that they're propagandized to exploit their bias and act like they're being neutral when they're not. A lot of them have no clue what the hell's really going on. Most of them have never did any kind of self-building, should I say. And there's a lot of different uh, criteria I would put self-building under. It could be financially, it could be economically, it could be, information. A lot of the liberal media that works in the liberal media thinks education is information when education is not. Education is a lot of times indoctrination. All right, but let's get into this conversation. Let's see what's going on.
That is, if you can watch development. Recently, Mr. Trump has not yet reached his White House to his because many guests may not know that our White House is near us, where the government works, good decisions are made there, and different decisions are made there in Washington. So, he has already stated that if the BRICS states use or do not use the dollar, then he will introduce 100% duty against all these states. And this perhaps is one such threat to the state in general. Americans have had a nightmare about specific banks. We will banks punish companies in this way, in order to state in the forehead that states will be punished and all products will be taxed 100%. One for a newly elected president. We all know that Americans are very sensitive to this topic because America's strength is in the dollar. Of course, because investing money in dollars, if there is no dollar with its positions, will only fail. The American economy, with its huge debt, with the fact that, as it were, the dollar brings huge profits to banks and so on. Is that what you think of the new president's move? Won't what you said finally undermine confidence in the United States, in its policies, in its financial system? Will find the BRICS countries and other states even faster to flee from the dollar and get rid of this system?
First of all, I agree with you about the use of the dollar as the world currency. The United States has a lot of unearned money. According to our experts, Somewhere in the last 10 years, they received approximately $10 trillion just like that from heaven for the facts of use. The dollar as the world's reserve currency. Well,
Now, I don't know if you guys understand full macro and microeconomics. What Putin is saying right now is that we have had a spending problem over the last 10 years. And, you know, Republicans and Democrats alike, I remember throwing my fist in the air when Trump signed the omnibus bill in, I think it was 2018. I was pissed. That was the first time my wife could tell you, that was the first time I was like, yeah, Trump with the bullshit, he caved. And I think a lot of it was him wanting to be liked, him not wanting to look. He was new to the scene. He was listening to his advisors, and he was trying to play it safe. And the safe bet in his mind was, okay, we're going to get a little bit of what we want with this border wall. We're going to get a little bit of what they want, and we're going to fund and spend some of this stuff. And then we had COVID, where he signed another bill to help speed up the process for creating the vaccines. And what was the operation? I forgot what the operation was. You guys can look it up, or I might plug it in here in the back edit. But yeah, so he signed that in, and those things were part of printing money. When Biden and Harris came in, they ramped that shit up times 10. They went crazy. And what Putin is pointing out is the fact that inflation in our country is primarily due to our dollar being devaluated by its own government with all the money policies. Our financial money policies are horrible. They have been a lot leaning towards the leftist side of ideas. A lot of our programs, if you just go over all of his public record, go over what we spend regularly each year. We put billions and billions of dollars in the shit that we ain't got no business doing. We send billions and billions of dollars all over the damn country. I mean, over the globe. And there's a lot of programs and regulations. It's all socialist. It just adds up to a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, and then the taxpayers hold the dime by getting double taxed, by being taxed and then paying an inflation tax because they're devaluating a dollar by printing money out of thin air. And that's what he's talking about. Money coming out of out of heaven. And to a degree, Russia and all the other countries have a real grief, a real gripe. It's not that they don't want to use the American dollar if it's beneficial, because to them money is just a tool anyway. It's an agreement to understand how much some sort of value was established for some sort of product or hourly wage or labor, right? It is all the means of production. So currency is just a way to express that means of production and have it on terms where people can barter, right? And use it as a bartering item. It's been that way since the idea of currency came to exist, right? So Putin is pointing out, which all rightfully so, is that America is uh very bad about how it's spending its money. Was Trump better? I believe so, yes. In so many different ways. And this time I believe he will be even better than he was last time. And last time he was very good economically. Our economic policies were thriving. When my business was jumping, freight was moving. I was negotiating the best prices I ever had. We was doing great in the freight sector, right? And that meant, and anytime the freight sector is doing good, the whole of the private economy is doing good because a lot of goods and stuff are being shipped here and there. People are building houses, lumber needs to be moved. I mean, couches are being bought because people are living in new houses and it's a lot of traffic, right? So it's good. Being able to keep your eye on the freight market gives you a good idea of where the economy is at because nothing gets anywhere without the trucks, right? So, anywho, the idea of a leftist country just printing and not having responsibility for how much is being spent, where and where it's going, and trying to enforce the world to still use a dollar that is devaluating itself is not a me versus you problem. It's a you versus you problem. So what Putin is saying is America is going against its own financial supremacy, not us. Not us. They're doing it to themselves, and we have no choice but to make sure our people are straight. So let's keep going.
It's on bets, on placements in their banks there, and so on. 10 trillion is decent. Very much it means that they consume more than they produce. This is a very important thing. That is, in fact, the United States at the expense of the dollar.
Let me stop this real quick too, because this is something he won't say, right? But as we know, as a ground point, you understand that he knows that we are the consumer nation. Remember this now. Remember I talked about tariffs before, and I elaborated in one of my last videos about one of my cousins posting on Facebook about people not knowing how tariffs work.
How it works. Tariffs are a tool for negotiation, cuz the fact that you think that foreign companies aren't going to pay them tariffs is what's laughable. Right now, America is the #1 consuming nation in the world. There is no reality in which a country like India, China, that mass produces and manufactures shit doesn't want access to this consumer population. We don't manufacture a lot of stuff, and we're trying to bring manufacturing back. And tariffs is a tool to do so because it opens up opportunity for people like me, people like you in this country to compete with the prices.
Well, this man just proved my point. He knows that we are the #1 consuming nation. We consume far more than we produce, and everybody wants a piece of that pie. So whether he likes it or not, he has to deal with us on some kind of level. Now we put 100% tariff on him, right? He like, come on, man, y'all are messing up our exports. Our people don't consume as much as your people does. Our people aren't as rich as your people are. Come on now, we need to export this goods to you. Don't cripple us like that. Now that part is a chink in their armor, just like we have chinks in our armor. Like when it comes down to our pharmaceuticals, we get all our shit from China. They're manufacturing our steel. They're manufacturing. So there's a lot of chinks in our armor too, as far as self-sufficiency. But that cohabitation of the world is why the balance is working. Now, if we start getting to a point where, okay, we're demanding everybody keep using our dollar, but we are devaluing how valuable our dollar is, and we turn around and keep doing that, they have no choice but to move away from the dollar. But if we get in here and get our economics together and start spending less than we're domestically producing, right? We change the dynamics in that, where they will have no choice but to deal with us, our dollar, because our dollar is powerful. You get it? Tariffs only enforce the power that it already has. So when we put the tariffs on, they still going to want to come into our country. They're going to play ball. They don't want to pay 100% because that opens up the door for us to just be more self-sufficient anyway and fix our own damn problems.
Continues to exploit other economies of the world in its favor. Few people think about it, but it is a fact. And on that part, I agree with you. It's one now too. You said that. The son of President-elect Trump has threatened that those who do not use the dollar, he will impose sanctions against them there and increase tariffs. As far as I know, he didn't say that. I understand that everything that has to do with the United States causes a certain reaction in us. Mm-hmm. As far as I could see, however, I had no time to particularly look at what was happening somewhere beyond the hill, but nevertheless, I paid attention to it. He said that if someone forbids the use of the dollar and restricts it, he will react accordingly. It's not the same thing. It is one thing to prohibit the use of the dollar and another thing to another.
All right, so check this out. Let me break down what he just said if you guys didn't catch it. He's basically saying that he's heard the rumblings of what supposedly Trump said, And it comes out that Trump did not say that in particular. That was his son. All right. Now, what was said by Trump was that if the BRICS nations decides not to use the dollar, they will react in response. Trump's son coming out saying that the response would be preemptively 100% tariffs. That's kind of like a pump fake, and Putin knows it, and that's why he's clarifying that. Like, that's a pump fake. What is said, it done is going to be two different things. Now, Putin is obviously trying to play the neutral role, like he's not one way or the other up on the dollar. Of course, he would want his currency in a stronger light, but he's a pragmatic person. Putin is a wise man. Whether you agree, disagree with how he moves, what he's got going on in his country, that's not to be debated. That's not what I'm bringing to the table to debate. One thing we do have to understand is he is a leader, a huge leader in the world. And you must understand what he's talking about and what he has going on in his psyche to understand what's happening on the global scale and what figures are being moved around, what's happening, right? He's basically saying that he's not pressed about the decision, and he's waiting to see when Trump gets in. What the deal on everything is going to be. Because 9 times out of 10, Trump will do things to make our economy a little bit more self-sufficient and stronger, which boosts up the power of our dollar, and he will have no choice but to respect it anyway. It's basically what he's saying.
Don't use it, you know? These are different things completely, that's why. 2 to 3. After all, the newly elected president has not been in the same position for 4 years.
For 4 years.
During this time, changes have occurred in the economy, in the world, and in the American economy. His political opponents have done a lot to undermine the dollar as the world reserve currency.
Listen to that. Listen to that. Out of the horse's mouth. While these liberals and these Democrats keep trying to tell you how they're doing the best for us, how our allies around the world, and how Putin's getting strong, and how they're the reason why. Out of Putin's mouth. Hey, his political opponents is fucking up their money. His political opponents is fucking up the church's money. Those donations that you guys are bringing in your tax and your check every week. His political opponents, the Democrats, while they're sitting here getting rich, doing their little schemes in Ukraine. Come on now. Why you think Joe Biden pardoned his son back to 2014 when his son was almost investigated on the board of Burisma, the oil company? Come on, man. Y'all got to do y'all research. Pay attention. These Democrats is playing y'all hard. I'm from the street. I know some hustles when I see it. I know robberies. I know backdoors. I know dope sales. I see it. I see what's going on. And them folks is up to no good in Ukraine. Been up to no good. We're going to get into that too. World War III, why that would be a possibility, why it's happening, why is it brewing? It's not over if Trump doesn't. This is a long game. Things happen over time, right? You know, this whole Ukraine thing, him and Putin invading Ukraine, a lot of it's because of Obama and Biden and Kamala going over there the minute Biden and Kamala was elected. Her ass go over there to Ukraine and swear to God, Ukraine is going to be a part of NATO.
So I will say what I know we all say, and I will say over and over again. The United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people in defense of the NATO alliance.
Bruh. Bitch, are you dumb?
Pardon me?
Are you dumb?
I think she's dumb. I think she's dumb.
Are
you, like, medically speaking, are you like
I'm not trying to be mean. Like, are you dumb?
I think she's dumb.
When after the Warsaw Pact, the only thing that created the ceasefire after the Soviet Union broke up, and the only thing that created the ceasefire between Russia and NATO was a Warsaw Pact of friendliness between Ukraine and Russia and Crimea and Russia that they wouldn't be in any kind of conflict as long as NATO stayed off of their borders. NATO, Ukraine and Crimea was never to ever be assumed into NATO. And what are we doing? All on their front doorstep, and then wonder why they strike back. You know, a lot of you liberals out here, you will understand not messing with a snake in his den. Because if you keep messing with the snake in his den and you get bit, you be like, why kill the snake? Because you kept messing with it at his den. That's how I feel about Putin in Russia. Why y'all keep messing with them people? The agreement was don't step foot in Ukraine. We over here in Obama's regime, displacing leadership and influencing their election.
In recent months, as the citizens of Ukraine have made their voices heard, we have been guided by a fundamental principle. The future of Ukraine must be decided by the people of Ukraine. That means Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected, and international law must be upheld. And so Russia's decision to send troops into Crimea has rightly drawn global condemnation. From the start, the United States has mobilized the international community in support of Ukraine to isolate Russia for its actions and to reassure our allies and partners. We saw this international unity again over the weekend when Russia stood alone in the UN Security Council defending its actions in Crimea. And as I told President Putin yesterday, the referendum in Crimea was a clear violation of Ukrainian constitutions and international law, and it will not be recognized by the international community. Today, I'm announcing a series of measures that will continue to increase the costs on Russia and on those responsible for what is happening in Ukraine. First, as authorized by the executive order I signed 2 weeks ago, we are imposing sanctions on specific individuals responsible for undermining the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and government of Ukraine. We're making it clear that there are consequences for their actions. Second, I have signed a new executive order that expands the scope of our sanctions. As an initial step, I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government. And if Russia continues to interfere in Ukraine, we stand ready to impose further sanctions. Third, we're continuing our close consultations with our European partners, who today in Brussels moved ahead with their own sanctions against Russia. Tonight, Vice President Biden departs for Europe, where he will meet with the leaders of our NATO allies, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And I'll be traveling to Europe next week. Our message will be clear. As NATO allies, we have a solemn commitment to our collective defense, and we will uphold this commitment. Fourth, we'll continue to make clear to Russia that further provocations will achieve nothing except to further isolate Russia and diminish its place in the world. The international community will continue to stand together to oppose any violations of Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity, and continued Russian military intervention in Ukraine will only deepen Russia's diplomatic isolation and exact a greater toll on the Russian economy. Going forward, we can calibrate our response based on whether Russia chooses to escalate or to de-escalate the situation. Now, I believe there's still a path to resolve this situation diplomatically in a way that addresses the interests of both Russia and Ukraine. That includes Russia pulling its forces in Crimea back to their bases, supporting the deployment of additional international monitors in Ukraine, and engaging in dialogue with the Ukrainian government, which has indicated its openness to pursuing constitutional reform as they move forward towards elections this spring. But throughout this process, we're going to stand firm in our unwavering support for Ukraine. As I told Prime Minister Yatsenyuk last week, the United States stands with the people of Ukraine and their right to determine their own destiny. We're going to keep working with Congress and our international partners to offer Ukraine the economic support that it needs to weather this crisis and to improve the daily lives of the Ukrainian people. And as we go forward, we'll continue to look at the range of ways we can help our Ukrainian friends achieve their universal rights and the security prosperity, and dignity that they deserve. Thanks very much. And Jay, I think will be available for questions. Thank you.
And establishing our own hierarchy in there and thinking that he ain't paying attention. Come on now, y'all got to do y'all research. Y'all got to do your research. Stop just hearing everything that's coming across your ear.
And first of all, they did it with their own hands, using the dollar as an instrument of political and maybe even
Let me rewind that. Let me rewind that.
His political opponents. During this time, changes have occurred in the economy, in the world, and in the American economy.
Yep.
His political opponents have done a lot to undermine the dollar as the world reserve currency. And first of all, they did it with their own hands, using the dollar as an instrument of political and maybe even armed struggle in order to cause damage to other countries which are still in power in the Soviet Union, but exist as their enemy. We have never considered them.
Right.
They suddenly decided that we adversaries began to impose restrictions. And taking into account the fact that the share of SA in the world economy is decreasing, and therefore the influence of the dollar on world economic processes is also decreasing, processes associated with the use of other instruments naturally occur. For example, on Bitcoin, who can ban it completely? No one AA. The use of other electronic means of settlement, who can ban anyone? Because these are new technologies, and whatever happens with the dollar, these tools will evolve one way or another. Because everyone will strive to. Reducing costs and enhancing reliability is an unavoidable process that must be navigated. Lee de 10 has nothing to do with it at all, but if there is a further continuation. Reducing the use of the dollar in the world and with their own hands. They will, of course, undermine the basis of their economic power. That's pretty obvious. I completely agree with you here. Ultimately, here we are at last. We never declined the dollar. Did we reject it? No, we refused its usage. Yet we refused it, and they acknowledge they struggled and confronted the inherent issues of the dollar itself. Now it's crucial to contemplate our next steps. All of this stems from a confidence built through exclusion. This is equally unacceptable in the economic realm. Understanding the world's ongoing processes is vital, and it is upon this understanding that we must structure our policies, even internationally. Observe the natural occurrences in various nations. Countries, even unwavering allies of the United States, are decreasing their gold and foreign exchange reserves in dollars and euros. It's noteworthy that this reduction has spanned the last decade. The reduction was approximately 13%. This is a significant amount. This phenomenon transpires naturally. And no one, he can't reverse these processes, particularly using sanctions and coercive approaches that are detrimental to the economy and those who initially accept it, creating widespread and long-term consequences.
All right, so let me address that. Now, in my opinion, I believe that Putin is hoping for the best and thinking that these things, these sanctions and stuff can affect it, comes from a state of saying that, well, the ball is already rolling. And for instance, when he acknowledged Bitcoin, you cannot destroy Bitcoin. You can't control Bitcoin. It's going to move how it's going to move. So what he's saying is economies are going to move how they're going to move. And And people are going to find out ways to be more efficient, whether it's their sanctions or tariffs or anything or not. And to a large degree, I think he's correct in that. But also, you're not talking about exchange, right? If I have the means to grow corn in my backyard, why would I not invest in growing the corn in my backyard if it saves me 50%? I don't, when I create the choice to save my own money and stop worrying about what y'all doing and how y'all spending on corn, I actually help myself. So the sanctions that Trump and tariffs that Trump would actually do, I don't think there will be more sanctions. He sanctioned Russia plenty of times when he was in office. I mean, he was actually very hard on Trump, on Russia. But the tariffs issue is one of those things where it's like, okay, if I start producing what I need in my country anyway, I don't care what the world's price on steel is, because we're producing it here, right? So there's something to be said for both sides of the argument, when it boils down to the movement of the currency. But the number one thing that they're both in unison is the way that the country is going. We are devaluing our dollar ourselves, and we have to fix that. The approaches of fixing it is what Trump is bringing to the table, and what Russia is saying is it's neither in my best interest, our best interest, or one way or the other. If the dollar is something worth using, we'll use it, and that's basically what he's getting to. If the Bitcoin is worth using, people will use it. If the dollar is worth using, people will use it. If the ruble is worth using, people will use it. If the yuan is worth using, people will use it. And that's what he is saying. So he's saying tariffs and sanctions won't fix that. And I kind of play devil's advocate and look at it through the eyes of an American and what's best for us. And I think it would fix it. I think us actually strengthening, boldening our country and making the dollar a little bit more rare will make it more valuable and have a little bit more power. We just got to stop all the printing, and that will change it. So that is not the tariffs and the sanctions are not the solution. The getting our shit in order is the solution to rebuilding the strength of our economy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Loose and Reckless. This is your host, Ray. I want to talk about a little subject of World War III. All right, this is going to be part one. This is going to be its own little series. I know. Here I go with another series. But all of it starts someplace and all of it goes somewhere at different times. I mean, the purpose of me doing this is to document my place in history, what I've seen and what I see at the moment. I speak on this a lot, that after Trump's monumentous election and win, we are living in a new time, a new age. This is very important for us to stake our claim of being here. This moment in time is one of the greatest times to ever be alive. The first generation of people to be able to record themselves and their great grandchildren, hear all their details, hear everything that they say. People are going to look back thousands of years from now and say that this was the beginning of human society, because in their view they're going to be able to watch every detail, what societies are raising and falling, what conflicts are going on in the world, who's winning what war, what political, I mean, this is a dawn of a new age. That there may be thousands of years from now people are on spaceships flying past Saturn, watching people that existed when the internet and social media first came to exist. So we are in a wonderful time to be alive, even though it seems like there's a lot of fuckery going on. All right. Today I want to talk about World War III and the potentiality of it ever happening, what's leading up to it. We're going to cover a couple different videos on it, and let's go in and get into it. Right. First little segment. This is a video of Trump back in February 21st, 2023. All right. He wasn't the president. He wasn't He wasn't, involved, right? He was still campaigning, but he wanted to warn people of all the doings and goings on, right? Um, and yeah, we're in a situation right now that it screams to me that everybody should be seeing the direction that we're headed. All right. Like there's a lot of turmoil. I mean, in Syria right now, we'll get into that too. Uh, my stance is we need to get out of a lot of this shit. We need to focus on ourselves. We need, as a country, need to get our stuff together. And yeah, man, start building our situation back.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world. And now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it. And I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades. And that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago.
All right. And that was him speaking 2023 about getting this establishment cleaned out. A lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money just instigating nonsense around the globe. As a former veteran, as a veteran, um, and surviving and existing in this time of so much conflict between OIF and Afghanistan, I mean, it was non-stop for the last 20 years of my life, right? I've watched this, and I think the American people have lost the taste of war. I mean, not that anybody ever had the taste of war, but we are disgusted with the taste of thinking about sending our children. I got a 19-year-old son that followed my footsteps, and he's in the military right now. I don't want to see him involved in a lot of this fuckery. I want to see him existing and having to be coming home with mental issues and thinking about death that he's witnessed or participated in. It's one of those things where you fight for a reason. When we sign our lives on the line and give up our constitutional rights to become soldiers and get out there and fight on the front lines, even if there's individuals that are in Washington or in the bigger scheme of things in NATO, the UN, that are instigating nonsense and putting our lives on the line and leveraging our lives, it doesn't feel good if you're involved in this and you see it from the other side. You see how these people are getting rich off of the nonsense they're putting you in. And I think Trump is coming at this in a way where he's trying to avoid all the nonsense. As you notice, as of this taping, you have Biden had sent off, had given Zelensky permission to shoot the damn rockets into Russia, and first thing he does is actually do it. And I want to applaud Putin by being having restraint. He sent the ICBM intercontinental ballistic missile back, and he didn't put a warhead on it. Now, if y'all know, these missiles can devastate and level a city with a nuclear warhead on the tip of it, right? So the turmoil that's growing right in front of our eyes is nothing to be playing about. I mean, we playing chicken on the road to disaster. You got Kamala Harris. The minute that Biden and Harris got elected, she's over there in Ukraine talking about Ukraine will be a part of Russia. I mean, be a part of NATO. When after World War II and the Soviet Union broke up, they had a Warsaw Pact of non-aggression with Ukraine, Crimea, and Russia. And one of the number one things that kept everything calm was that NATO was to not invade and encroach on Russia's borders, which what they did. The first thing Kamala Harris talking about, yeah, Ukraine will be a part of NATO. Obama over there helping destabilize the election process. We're sending millions of dollars to put our own regime in Ukraine back in, what was it, 2012 or 14, right? Joe Biden, he had his son over there on the board of one of the largest oligarchy oil dynasties, Burisma Holdings. He gets the doggone DA fired that was investigating the corruption in that company because his son was on the board of it. And here we are today. Biden is pardoning his son back to went 2014 when he was on the board of Burisma. Come on now, y'all got to put these things together. This man was talking about this in 2023. There's a lot of things going on. You got North Koreans that have been sent to the border. Now, don't get me wrong. I still feel like there is no fighting force on this planet that can deal with what we have. And that's because I feel and I've seen a lot. I have people still working on the highest levels of government that I won't put them on par with them, but I joined the military with a lot of them in 2000. They're still in, they're still doing what they're doing. I have commanders that are still in, generals that used to be my lieutenants. You know what I'm saying? I got my ear to the pulse of what's going on in the military, right? And from a political standpoint, I'm heavily invested in understanding what's going on geopolitically and socially. So I'm seeing a lot of the movements and the goings on. And one thing I can say is people are sick of the war. People want this stuff to be, we got to pull out. Like Trump just said a couple days ago, I might cover this. There's turmoil going on in Syria, which happens to be uprising. I'm not 100% versed on all the topics as of yet, which we will do that together on probably next week. But the remnants of ISIS and Al Qaeda are now trying to overthrow Assyria and take over. All right, they're taking over. This is not good, guys. This is not good at all. Okay, so the problem of being involved in destabilizing things like we did with Iraq, we threw Saddam Hussein over, whether you like it or not. That's the type of person that needed to lead that country. Now it's all hell breaking loose and it's about to go crazy over there. But if we just stayed and mind our damn business, we might not be in the world might not be in a lot of the situations it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a view of America that is kind of unconventional. If anybody has seen Lord of the Rings, think of Lord of the Rings and the Eye of Sauron, right? The Eye of Sauron is looking all over for the rings and is always frantic. But the last thing you want to do is when Frodo put that ring on, it stopped moving frantic and was focused, right? And it was focused and it started sending its people. America is the Eye of Sauron. We are a tricky, weird place to figure out, but we're an anomaly that has never been before. That's why the country is so successful. It is the will of the people. Now, the eye of Sauron is the will of America's people. All right. We can do a lot of good with that eye when it focuses. We could do a lot of bad with that eye when it focuses. All right. But it's all based on the will of the people. This man you see on the screen, Trump, I was saying he was going to win the election in 2015 when he came down the escalator. I was all for him. The reason why is because I understood what was happening in this country. There was a voice of people that were being left out, that were being overlooked. Academia ran wild with the narrative, and they were running wild with how they're teaching our kids. They were running wild with how they were spending our taxes. They were running wild. Academia, the most elitist, snobbish thinking people that think they got it all together, that don't have shit, which is a whole nother conversation. Like I'm always amazed when I have a resume come across my email for somebody looking for a job, and I see their qualifications all through academia, and I'm just like, wow. And you need to get a job from me. I got associates, but I don't take my associates in business is really minuscule. It doesn't even matter. I learned more actually running a business than I ever did in school, because school can't teach you. These professors have never ran a business in their life. They're just trying to educate you on something that they hypothetically think about. And they've never signed a check. They've never signed a check, which is kind of off topic. But he was an avatar. Trump was an avatar to the will of the people. And as you can see, as this last election happened, it was a landslide. The will of the people is getting stronger. That eye of Sauron is starting to move a lot less frantic. It's starting to actually pay attention to the things that matter. The people are waking up and starting to pay attention to politics. And a lot of people that are being earnest and having integrity and not letting the leftist academic class, the elitists, tell you what to think anymore through news and propaganda, and you're actually paying attention to it all, you're starting to see. And that's why there was such a groundswell and a landslide of a victory for this man. World War III has a potential of still happening and becoming a major thing. But I love the fact that people like Putin are waiting to see what Trump does. On so many different issues, this is the will of the people, and people staying out of these conflicts is what we need. But we have to cover what's happening. You know what I mean? You have to pay attention to what's happening. This man said this a year ago that this is what we are at, and look at what's going on. And before Biden gets out the door, he's shooting bombs. He's given permission to use our bombs, the attackums. Why? You shouldn't even be making any calls like this. And now that this Syria thing is going on, I hope we stay out of there. We have soldiers in Syria. You have a lot of the war hawks, the John Boltons, those guys coming out swearing by we need to go ahead and send more reinforcements. Anything is necessary. No, we don't. No, we don't. Pull them guys home. Bring them guys home. You guys lied to Trump on his first administration term that they were there. Lied to him. That's treason. Treason. So getting off by being fired when they bring in all these new people, the new regime comes in that they keep trying to say is all unqualified. I think that's so funny. They always say everybody that Trump is picking is not normal and not qualified. What about the transsexuals that were running the health department? What about the tranny that was running the Department of Defense and he was stealing luggage out of the airports? You guys know who I'm talking about. That was normal? No, that wasn't normal. And I'm sick of y'all trying to make it seem like it was normal. Wasn't shit normal about it. So I want you guys to understand World War III is not necessarily a problem that I believe is going to be happening anytime soon. There's a potentiality that it can be instigated. But every time I watch anything with Putin, he seems like a very level-headed and particular guy. Level-headed may sound extreme to those who think that him invading Ukraine or annexing Crimea was irrational. It wasn't irrational. It was very rational. And if you look at it honestly, you can see where he came from. America and the UN and NATO have been poking a bear for a long time. Even if you can kill the bear, doesn't mean that you should encroach on his territory and keep fucking with it. You understand what I'm saying? So I'll get into a little bit more on World War III. I got a panel coming up with some guys. We're going to talk about, some of the moves that's being made in the military as far as budget cuts and spending. Elon talking about getting rid of or minimizing and redirecting funds from the F-35 project to more of drones and things like that. And we're going to talk about that from a military perspective. So stay tuned for that. We're trying to put that together for next Friday. And yeah, if you like what's going on over here at Loose and Reckless, like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys for spending some time with me. You can do anything else but be here and spend your time here. My time is valuable too, so I definitely understand it. And thank you for watching.